The leaders most at risk right now are not the weakest performers. They're the strongest ones functioning at reduced capacity and calling it normal. Welcome to Longevity Unlocked, the podcast where leadership physiology and sustainable high performance intersect. I'm Sherri Austin, registered nurse, executive longevity advisor, and founder of Executive Longevity. For nearly 3 decades, I've worked in high-stakes clinical environments, observing what prolonged stress, cognitive overload, and chronic depletion do to human performance. And now, I help executives, founders, and high-performing leaders protect the one asset most organizations overlook: their decision-making capacity. Because leadership decline rarely happens all at once. It happens subtly, quietly, through accumulated physiological strain, reduced recovery, and cognitive overload that slowly erodes clarity, resilience, and strategic thinking. This podcast is about protecting leadership performance long term. We'll discuss executive longevity, decision quality, nervous system regulation, recovery infrastructure, and the hidden physiological factors influencing how leaders think, lead, and scale. Because the future of leadership is not just about working harder, it's about sustaining high-level cognition over time. Welcome again to Longevity Unlocked. Most people think burnout happens because someone lacks discipline. But in my experience working in high-stakes environments for nearly 3 decades, the people most at risk are often the most disciplined. They wake up early. They push through exhaustion. They maintain output. They stay productive long after their system is depleted. And that is exactly the problem. Because discipline can temporarily mask capacity decline. It can help you override exhaustion, override poor recovery, override stress, override cognitive fatigue. But eventually, the body always collects the debt. And what leaders call pushing harder is often just accelerating deterioration. So today, I want to challenge one of the most dangerous ideas in leadership culture: that grit solves everything. You know, that hustle culture mentality. Because sometimes grit is the thing quietly breaking you down. High performers are conditioned to believe if something feels harder, work harder. If energy drops, push harder. If focus declines, be more disciplined. But here's the issue: you cannot discipline your way out of physiological depletion. You can override it temporarily, but you cannot sustainably outperform a degraded system. And this is where many executives get trapped, because they confuse compensation with performance. They think, I'm still producing. I'm still closing the deals. I'm still functioning. Yes, you are. But functioning is not the same thing as operating optimally. A leader operating at 60 to 70% capacity can still look successful externally. That's what makes this dangerous. The decline becomes normalized. Decision quality drops subtly. Recovery shortens. Patience decreases. Emotional regulation weakens. Thinking becomes reactive instead of strategic. And because output still exists, the leader assumes everything is fine until the system forces a correction. This is the part most people never talk about. When the nervous system is depleted, more effort is not neutral. It's expensive. Every additional push requires borrowing from your future recovery. And leaders do this constantly. More caffeine, more meetings, more screen exposure, less sleep, more stimulation, more urgency. But the body interprets chronic urgency as threat. And eventually, the physiology adapts to survival instead of optimization. Now the leader feels wired but exhausted, tired but unable to sleep, productive but mentally foggy, successful but emotionally detached. And here's the irony. Many high performers interpret these symptoms as proof they need more discipline. No, you don't need more discipline. What they need is infrastructure, better recovery systems, better cognitive protection, better stress regulation, better decision hygiene. Because no elite organization scales sustainably without infrastructure. Yet leaders try to scale their lives purely through willpower. This is also why many routines fail. Not because most routines are built around optimization instead of stabilization. High performers often create routines that look impressive. The 5 a.m. wake ups, I've been there. That was me. They have a whole book about it. Cold plunges. Awesome. I love that too. Very good for the body for detoxification. Supplements. Take them daily. Love them. Good for the body. Added nutrition. Workout stacks. Yes. Got to get that workout in. Tracking apps. Still use those. Perfect calendars. That's a stretch. But underneath all of it, their nervous system is still dysregulated. This is what made me decide to study this work, because I was doing all of the things. When I'm talking to the leaders, I'm talking to me. I am that high-performing, high-achieving leader. And I still track, still have the watch, still have the apps. And it is good, but it is incomplete without a system. And you cannot optimize instability. That's why some leaders follow every biohack imaginable and still feel exhausted. Because recovery is not a gadget. Recovery is not a wearable score. Recovery is whether your physiology actually feels safe enough to restore. I'm going to let that sit with you for a minute, because it had to sit with me. Because I'm looking at my perfect sleep scores and I'm like, but I feel like crap. And that distinction matters, because wearables measure data, but data is not the same as recovery. I'm going to repeat that for you one more time. Data is not the same as recovery. You can have excellent metrics while still operating under chronic cognitive strain. I'm raising my hand. I'm part of the choir. This part is important. I am not anti-data. I think I just told you that. I do all the things. I still get up at 5 a.m., but that's because my body works better at 5 a.m. That's my chronotype. I think metrics can be useful, and they are. I still think you need to track your food. That gives you accurate information about what you're putting in your body. But somewhere along the way, leaders started outsourcing self-awareness to devices. And now many executives trust a readiness score more than they trust their own physiology. If your wearable says you're recovered, but you still feel mentally fragmented, that matters. If your sleep score looks good, but your thinking feels slower, that matters. Because recovery is not only biological, it's cognitive, it's emotional, it's neurological. You do not recover simply because you slept. You recover when the nervous system exits chronic threat mode. And many leaders never truly exit it. They sleep in stress, wake in stress, work in stress, eat in stress, think in stress, then wonder why discipline stops working. Most high performers do not have a motivation problem. They have a recovery infrastructure problem. And that's an important distinction because motivation can help you start, but physiology determines sustainability. You can be deeply ambitious and still be physically depleted. You can love your mission and still overload your nervous system. You can be disciplined and still be operating at reduced capacity. This is why leadership longevity matters, because eventually every decision flows through the condition of the human system making it. And leaders rarely realize their cognitive clarity is becoming compromised gradually, not dramatically, quietly, subtly, strategically. If this resonated with you, I want you to understand something clearly. You do not need to become tougher. You do not need more punishment, more pressure, more self-criticism. You need better infrastructure, better recovery systems, better decision protection, better physiological stability. Because leadership is not sustained through force. It is sustained through capacity. And the leaders who last the longest are not the ones who push the hardest. They're the ones who learn how to protect the system everything depends on. Thank you for listening to Longevity Unlocked. Share this episode with another leader who may be operating at reduced capacity without realizing it. And if you want to go deeper into executive longevity, decision quality, and sustainable high performance, follow me on LinkedIn and Substack at Executive Longevity. I also go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook on Monday through Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for real-time conversations on leadership capacity, recovery, infrastructure, and protecting cognitive performance in high-demand environments. You can also download the Executive Capacity Audit or book a private executive longevity strategy call using the links below. Remember, you don't need more discipline. You need better infrastructure supporting the system every major decision depends on. I'm Sherri Austin, and this is Longevity Unlocked. I will see you in the next episode.